about how to file a complaint. If you're ever in a situation that it seems like a public official or maybe a lobbyist has violated government ethics law, violated lobby law, how you might file a complaint with my agency. Really, the Government Ethics Commission as an agency, along with the government ethics laws and lobby laws, were originally enacted in the state of Oregon in 1973. During that time in the early 70s, we were living this kind of, as a country, we were living this kind of post-Watergate era. It was the first time that the federal government and most of the states in the country really had like a public push to increase transparency and also limit the extent to which people who hold public positions can use government resources for their personal gain. There are situations where the public is maybe concerned about something that a government official is doing and they're not sure whether, that maybe violates the law, whether it's permitted. Members of the public can call our office and get a staff member on the phone. As members of the public, if you're ever in a situation where you think that a government entity, or especially an individual public official, is doing something that's maybe illegal, you're more than welcome to call the Government Ethics Commission and speak with a staff member about it. In that regard, I will say though that if it's something that's already happened, we are like a staff that supports a commission. We're a regulatory agency, so while our staff are working the day-to-day, the commissioners are the one who make decisions about actual cases, actual things that happen. So if you do call my agency to ask questions about something that's happened before you want to file a complaint, I'm not really able to tell you specifically yes or no, what this person did violated government ethics or he didn't. If you haven't filed a complaint, because really that's the job of the commission, if that makes any sense. Besides government ethics laws, the two other areas that the Government Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over to enforce complaints is, like I said, lobby regulations, but also executive sessions of public meetings. In order to meet in an executive session, a public entity has to have, an executive session means behind closed doors, right? So to meet behind closed doors, they have to have a specific statutory authority. There has to be a specific law that says you can meet behind closed doors for this kind of reason. A few of the other ones that aren't necessarily personnel related might include if there's an instance where a governing body is in the middle of a lawsuit, has been sued, or they're likely to be sued. They have a right to meet in private to discuss their legal strategy with their attorney so that the opposing party doesn't have an opportunity to find out. Similarly, any documents or any information that's confidential, that's not a public record, that a body needs to meet to discuss, they can usually do that in an executive session. Because if information is confidential, you definitely don't want members of the public in there hearing things. Yeah, like you said, personal decisions, labor negotiations can be made behind closed doors. Property, real estate transactions can be negotiated behind closed doors. But those are mostly the limited areas. Kind of a good general idea of what you can find on our website that could be helpful to members of the public, or that can give you information, access to public records, access to information, looking at your local officials to see, where their financial interests lie, if they've been filing their annual conflict forms, their annual statements of economic interest properly, or any lobby issues that you're tied to or that you're interested in. You can look at registrations on those topics, like who's registered to lobby on those topics in Oregon, or as well as, to some degree, what expenses they have. What is a conflict of interest, or a public official in my town, their business might be, contracting with the city, and I'm wondering if that's a conflict of interest. You can look those things up by category, by broad categories on that part, and then you can do that again. Filing complaints. That's how cases and investigations come about. Complaints have to be filed. Generally speaking, at the Ethics Commission, there are two ways a complaint comes about. One, just any member of the public can file a complaint. Every once in a while, the government ethics complaint does this thing called an own motion. That's where the Government Ethics Commission decides to file its own complaint against someone. There are about 140 complaints filed a year, and it sounds almost crazy to say this, but of those 140 complaints filed a year, approximately 50% of them are non-jurisdictional. I guess what I'm saying is only about half of them actually get investigated and opened and looked at as cases.
Because they don't fall under the rules.
Because they don't fall under the Government Ethics Commission's laws. So like the Ethics Commission is just we're really limited in terms of, well, every state agency is really limited to like its own jurisdiction. Maybe the Secretary of State. So like the Secretary of State does have authority over accusations that state agencies are like wasting funds or abusing power. But that's just the Secretary of State and other state agencies. Like a lot of times, so I do get a lot of questions about that. Something else I get a lot of questions about is as far as like waste of funds and abuse of power, even like independent jurisdictions, like district attorney's offices a lot, police officers a lot of times, attorneys, judges.
Do you handle those?
No, we don't handle those. So a lot of times, like, I mean, so ethics is like a really general term, right? And there are government ethics, but there are a lot of other codes of ethics as well. And whenever it comes to abuse of power and misuse of position, all the government ethics laws have some kind of financial tie. I was going to get to this in a second. Since we're talking about government ethics, one thing that or a few things that all of them have in common is that all of the government ethics laws they have to relate to like an individual public official, and they all have to have some kind of financial tie, some kind of economic tie. So things like, going back to police officers abusing their power, or a city council making decisions that you think wastes funds, or a county commissioner wasting funds or using power. Those are all, I don't know, even if you file a complaint saying that your city council met behind closed doors and they didn't have a right to do that in that situation. Even then, whenever you file against the city council, whenever we open it, we're basically opening a complaint against every single member who was present that day and holding them each individually liable for that. Yes, sir.
Well, I think this might be the opportunity as a specific, somebody individual, John Kitzhaber-Hayes. Would that be a good example, perchance, of ethics? And does it get to a point where then you refer it to, say, the state district attorney to file the motions, or how does that work?
Okay, so you were asking about Kitzhaber-Hayes. That is kind of a good example. So sometimes there are situations where it's possible for a public official to, I can't say that either one of them did because they haven't had any findings of guilt, right? So where a person can potentially violate laws that fall under, different authorities. So with regard to Kitzhaber-Hayes, I think there was a potential for criminal liability, but also government ethics. Like government ethics is really it's administrative. Those are civil infractions. They're just violations. So the process that the Government Ethics Commission would go to, we have different laws. We have a different standard of proof. We have a different burden of proof. So they could be found in violation of government ethics laws simultaneously with being found to have committed crimes, or or just one or the other.
Is that what happened?
That's kind of what's going on. So the state and federal departments of justice took over those cases to review for possible criminal infractions, and they didn't find anything. So what the law was at the time that the Kitzhaber-Hayes cases were filed is that the Government Ethics Commission used to be required to cease our investigations completely if a criminal investigation was opened on, the same matter that we were already investigating. And actually, as a result of the Kitzhaber case, the law was changed, and we no longer have to stop our investigations when criminal investigations are going on, but that's why the Kitzhaber thing has been really drawn out over such a long period of time.